Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of The Lineup. I'm Joshua Adams and today I'm joined by Jeffrey Matthews and Christensen. In the lineup today we have the slow off-season, the large number of unsigned free agents, pace of play third, and the possibility of a strike bats cleanup. We'll round out the episode with the green light where we'll discuss Chief Wahoo being dropped by the Indians. Each episode will start with a segment we call Quick Pitch, where Christian and Jeff will catch you up on the latest Austin Peay baseball and softball news. And with that, I will turn things over to Jeff.
So softball is going to be heading over to Statesboro, Georgia, coming up. They're leaving out today. They're going to be playing on Friday. They're going to have their first game is going to be at 1 o'clock to Radford, and then another game is at 6 o'clock to Georgia Southern. They're looking to improve their record from last season. Their last season record was 17-31, so they're definitely looking to have a much better season than last one.
I would say so. Absolutely, but on the baseball.
Certainly not the way the Governors wanted to finish last year as they finished 7th in the Ohio Valley Conference. That being said, they do look to turn things around. Coach Travis Jansen has added a few to his squad, but we really haven't heard a lot about the baseball team this year. And over this winter, obviously they've been practicing. They've had their scrimmages. They've started up, obviously still cold here in Clarksville, but they do look to turn things around moving into the 2018 season. They start on February 16th. They get to spend the majority of their time at home, though, so hopefully they can really make something happen, fellas, as they start out, because the OVC has not been too well. They're predicting them in that lower half of the conference this year, so we'll find out if, just like all the other teams this year, they can prove the OVC wrong.
Yes, sir. And first off, we in MLB news, we have the incredibly slow off season because nothing has happened so far. I mean, Lorenzo Cain is signed, Yelich got traded. That's pretty much all we have so far.
Yeah, it's certainly been slow. And the first thing you take a look at is obviously the issues with signing. And a lot of people want to blame the agents. A lot of people want to blame the teams. We've heard the word collusion come up multiple times. But in terms of a slow baseball offseason, a lot of it has to do with the age of the players. I mean, we're looking at young players that just aren't getting paid as much as they, quote, should be, and a lot of older players that are looking to get overpaid. But there's a lot of issues in baseball when it comes to that.
Yeah, I don't believe the collusion angle. I think it's just a perfect storm of stuff happening, obviously. But I mean, because there's the older players, there's advanced analytics, which causes people to see aging curves in advance, and because you can see the underlying stats with exit velocity, ground ball percentage, stuff like that. I mean, there's so many things that is causing this, and it's not collusion. It's just the players are asking too much. I mean, the Players Association came out and said basically the Players Association and the MLB have basically been feuding in the media at this point. The Players Association basically blamed the MLB, saying it's the owner's fault, and then the MLB actually came out and said it is common at this point in the calendar to have a large number of free agents unsigned. What is uncommon is to have some of the best free agents sitting unsigned, even though they have substantial offers, some in 9 figures. So it's just players are being picky, and they don't really have maybe they do have the right to be, maybe they don't. I mean, what do you think on this?
I think you touched on it a second ago, of older players wanting to be overpaid almost. They've put in their time on, growing their career in baseball. Mm-hmm. However, a lot of these teams, they're kind of coming out and saying, well, do we want to pay a large amount to have a big name player? Or should we go the route of maybe paying less, but, again, like we said earlier, a second ago, these younger players are still asking for a lot of money. Mm-hmm. However, they might be able to get a few younger players at the same price for a big name player.
Yeah, the homegrown.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think a lot of organizations run into that dilemma where it's which route do we take?
For sure. And you can also take it
as some of the players are actually being smart, and the agents even smarter, because they're somewhat outthinking the teams, considering they're playing this waiting game and they're really holding back, and they're trying to make that decision on, am I going to get the payday that I'm expecting, or will I finally have to fold and just drop the cards? So I think a lot of it has to do with that. I look forward to seeing it. Obviously, spring training pitchers and catchers reporting soon. I'm not really sure how they're going to go about this one, but now that the Super Bowl festivities are over, everyone's saying it's baseball season, so when is it going to happen?
Oh yes, maybe we should address that. There was a football game on Sunday. That's all we're going to say, because this is a baseball show. But yeah, it's just so many things at once. It's not collusion. I mean, the players saying that it's collusion, it's just not true.
Yeah. And but some of the players have come out.
And especially, we were looking at the Players Union and especially their association coming out and saying, I'd like to read this statement real quick. And it was for immediate release. This was not too long ago. This was actually just on Sunday, actually. They came out and they said that recent reports have said that, or suggested that the Players Association has threatened to boycott the teams, boycott spring training, but they're saying that's all false. That's not going to happen. So, they could bring up collusion. Are we going to have what we had in the 80s? No, maybe not. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. It's pretty crazy to see what those owners did to those players. I just don't see that happening. I think that they'll figure things out before the 2018 season begins.
Well, for the longest time, there was what was known as the reserve clause, which basically made players the owner's property because they were on that team for the rest of their career, unless they were traded, of course. And there was Curt Flood, who in the 70s tried to fight it in the Supreme Court, and he was actually mocked by the judge and shot down. The judge asked him, "This isn't as easy as playing center field, is it?"
Yeah. No doubt.
But then in the 80s, free agency finally became a thing, and players started getting paid more. And that's what they're looking for. But Eric Hosmer asking for 9 years, I mean, I think you need to calm down.
It's a little much.
Yeah,
I agree. And he was actually an overrated player.
A lot of articles that you take a look at, Eric Hosmer is certainly on that list of somewhat overrated. And the reason for that is because, he's been great at the plate, but he hasn't been consistent. That's his issue, is the streaks. And obviously he's got a ring, and, that changes things a little bit too. They feel like that really gives them somewhat of an entitlement towards something, but and that obviously can lead us into other things as well, and that goes to free agents.
Yeah, I saw, I've seen so many articles. I've seen some saying that Hosmer is actually a good defender, and some saying he's actually a terrible defender and doesn't deserve any of his Gold Gloves. So I'm just assuming.
I don't know about that.
He's an average defender, just right down the middle, just going with that.
Yeah.
But it was interesting what you said about the Players Association saying they weren't supporting a spring training boycott, because a few agents had come out and said that we want a spring training boycott basically, and then the Players Association released a statement that a lot of people read into, saying, "Oh yeah, we'll back up the players if they did this," and then people started reporting that they were backing up a spring training boycott, and then they did that, which was like, "Oh, what are you talking about? We didn't what? No, this is not a thing."
So Jeffrey, we haven't heard a lot from you.
There's a whole lot of conversation here.
In terms of the teams and the players, obviously there's two sides to it. There's not much of a middle ground. So which side are you leaning towards? I mean, because the players have the agents on their side, and they're working hard for that money, but the teams are really just trying to get baseball rolling and hold on to the cash they've got.
I am more of on the side of just let's get baseball going. I like, I understand that once you get into the major leagues and you get into this high level, you want to be paid a large sum for, your efforts towards the team. However, I don't think you should be too greedy with it. At some point you have to say, okay.
Yeah.
You're getting paid.
I understand. Like you kind of have to come back down to earth for a moment and say, I'm getting paid to play a ball game, a sport that I got into because I loved it, and you have to be able to say, okay, I will take this much money
Todd
to play.
Frazier get?
Yeah. Well, it does make you take a look into free agents, and obviously that would be our next topic. So, considering free agents, there's a lot of big names. You already brought up Eric Hosmer, who has not signed. Jake Arrieta obviously hasn't signed, and that's one of those things where you don't really know what to expect from him. Any really, you take a look at a lot of different positions, but pitchers a lot of times are guys that you don't really know how they're going to produce because they're not always consistent. How is he going to be 2 years from now? Can you sign him to 5 years, or should you just wait and hold off? I don't know. It's tough. It's tough looking at all these different positions.
There are rumors Arrieta is looking for 7, which
that's ridiculous.
He's like 31, 32.
He is 31.
Like
He's 31. Yeah, he's 31.
So
that's
if he
ridiculous.
thinks he's going to be worth like $15 million a year when he's 38,
no.
I mean he has another thing.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
It's not going to happen.
And most of them are older. They are older. They're not young. Obviously, free agents tend to be that way, which it's made that way. But like you keep looking down the list, and there's still big names on the list. I mean, obviously, you guys know from Kansas City. I pay attention to that Royals side. I'm hurting a little bit. Okay, so Mike Moustakas obviously on this list as well, but he's 29. None of these guys necessarily have 20 more years left in this Major League Baseball thing. It's a game about the youth. It's the next man up, and that's the whole reason for the minors and what they've done to this sport. Have changed a lot. Look at the Braves and all that, the lower organizations. I see big futures for those.
Yeah, and just for some context, Royals fan, Cubs fan.
Easy now. We can stay neutral on
No,
baseball.
we can stay neutral because baseball is a beautiful game and we love it no matter what.
Yeah.
And
But the Braves are the best
fan.
team.
Obviously.
That's not the point.
they have-
You're
I
on the
can't-
show.
Hold on,
Can't
they
say
have
that
Dansby
one.
Swanson, they have Freddie Freeman. Do they still have Tehran?
You know, honestly, I don't know the answer to that question.
Because he's been a trade target for like 3
Yeah,
years.
he really has.
But,
Our pitching has been, I would almost say our pitching, it's been weird because we keep changing our pitching ways. have
Easy
just,
with
like,
that word "we" over there.
Okay, it's very
The
true, very
Braves.
true. The
Yeah.
Braves
The
have
Barbs.
definitely,
If you start taking BP with them, you let me know.
Then you can
Until
say
then-
we.
until
Very true,
then,
very true.
Easy on the "we."
but their pitching has just changed so much. It's,
For sure,
It's
for
definitely
sure.
been up, down. You know, we had Tehran, we had Kimball, we had Colin, and it was just, those, and now it's, at this
Did you
point,
just call
we
Cologne
have,
colon?
I did. I noticed it after I said it, and I just kind of
So
like
Bartolo.
tried to
Okay.
ignore it. But
Bartolo colon.
Okay, so moving on into back to the free agents, though. For real, we got to
Yeah.
continue to look because like the list is obviously huge. Is there anybody that sticks out to you specifically in free agency that you think should be signed right now?
I mean, Martinez is asking for too much. There's rumors that he's asking for $200 million as a solid cleanup hitter, but nothing more because he's an incredibly negative defensive outfielder. Like his defensive run saved is incredibly slow. I mean, low. But Todd Frazier, there was rumors he was looking for like 3 or 4 years, but he got 2 years and $17 million. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
this-
certainly plenty more. But with that, I
Yeah.
guess, well, it's time
gotta
to
go to
send it
commercial.
out.
When we come back, we will discuss pace of play and the possibility of a strike in the MLB after this.
Oh, one hit high and deep. Back of the end zone. Brown got it.
Four drives inside, put it up. See this one swung and missed it.
Now Smith again, block point tech.
Nice turnaround by Johnson. Near post. Kick in.
Any place, anytime. Find it here. The OBC Digital Network.
How will you lead to a better future? Will you lead through life-changing innovations? Or will your leadership shine through the quality of your work? Success is defined by the individual. So it's time to think about the person you want to be and where you will learn to lead through excellence. It's time to become a governor at Austin Peay.
Welcome back to the lineup. Now we are going to talk about pace of play. And Christian, this may be your last time on the show because you disagree with me on pace of play. I'm firmly in the, I guess you could call it old fuddy-duddy camp.
Yeah.
That I like the lack of action because I think it's just so cool because these players are giving their everything for that one pitch and it takes them like 30 seconds to gather themselves and to get themselves ready to resituate themselves. And I mean, as J.D. Martinez does with the that he does before every single pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other people like Chris Sale that he thinks there should be, like a 5-second pitch clock, basically, that he just gets on the mound, chucks it, and he throws 99 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So, but you are on the other camp.
Yes, and the reason I am is mainly because of the way that baseball has spread out over the course of so many hours, and the game is getting longer and longer. If you take a look at back at how the game originally began, it was much quicker, but basically Major League Baseball is calling for roughly a 20-second pitch clock, and that's the idea, and that's the standard, and they've tried it in the minors, and it has obviously significantly shortened games, and not to the point, though, to where it's making the players necessarily uncomfortable. We haven't heard any serious complaints, and really it's pretty natural. You don't necessarily think about the clock unless you're a guy that every time he throws a pitch has to walk around the mound 3 times, look up, say the Hail Mary, and then get back on the rubber. So that's where I'm a little confused, especially as a guy who umpired and played baseball. I just, you pay attention to these players, and they get out of the box every single time, and it's like, restrap the gloves. Spit on the hands, Think about the bat a little bit, hold it, tell it, we're going to do this one.
In the case of Yasiel Puig, lick the bat.
Yeah, lick it. It's like, come on, are you kidding me? Like, this is we're playing a sport here. This is not a walkathon. Believe it or not, there's actually less action that seems to happen in a baseball game than a walkathon because it's so slow sometimes. And a full 9-inning game, especially one that has a lot of walks, one that really just takes some serious time. Errors, man, that'll just kill you. But I do like the idea of pace of play. I think that they should speed the game up just a little bit. I'm not asking them to run to the batter's box. I'm not asking the pitcher to throw it, grab it, step on the rubber, pitch. But I would just like to see a little more giddy up in terms of getting this game rolling.
I'm in the middle. So I understand both situations. You don't want to sit in a ballpark for 5 hours and watch a ball game. However, when I was growing up, baseball was definitely a spectator sport where you came and you watched the game and you just kind of hung out, you talked or whatever. And I like that aspect of it. However, sometimes it takes forever. Like you talking about, walking around the mound 3 times, restrapping gloves and stuff like that. So I don't necessarily mind a pitch count. However, we did hear about them might be introducing bullpen carts.
Yeah.
I do not agree with that.
That's how they used to do it. That's how they used to do it.
They did it it was the 70s or 80s, or it might have been crossed over. But it was a time when baseball was just at its lowest point, basically. Because football was taking the nation by storm. They were just trying to get people in the ballpark by any means necessary. I mean, the White Sox, they had jerseys that were shorts. And they're just
glad that didn't happen anymore. I'm glad that we've stuck with the pants thing. But so Jeffrey, let me ask you, since you're kind of on the fence, I'm going to put you on the spot, okay?
It's all right.
In 2017, how many baseball games did you watch all the way through on TV?
Oh man.
From the first pitch to the final out, how many baseball games did you watch? Every single pitch.
My guess is bagel.
Bagel. That's right. Toss a goose egg up there, folks.
No, the honest answer would be probably, I'll be honest with you, about 3.
Okay.
I did catch 3 of them that were from start to finish.
How many of them were you
I feel like that was, what was that, games 2, 3, and 4 of the World Series? It wasn't regular season,
all
buddy.
All of them were Braves games, I'll tell you that, though.
Okay, so it wasn't the World Series by any means.
No, absolutely not. Never.
I'm sorry.
No, it's cool.
That's one of the things with me. I talk to a lot of sports fans in general, and the reason they leave baseball is because it's not friendly to TV. One of the reasons football does such a great job of marketing itself is the replay, the constant replay. You can only replay a pitch so many times because it's a fraction of a second that player gets to react. So there's not like a huge hit you get to see the follow-up celebration. If a pitcher throws 101 mile an hour strike down Main Street, that's one quick highlight. Oof, that was a good pitch, and it's over, and that's it. It's not like football where they can constantly replay that physicality, those players going full speed for, which is also a short period of time. But baseball is really struggling to market itself in that category, and I think it's because of the pace of play.
Yeah,
personally.
Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, he's been severely pushing for pace of play since he got in office, and for that reason, I am possibly the world's smallest fan.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're not a big fan in that category.
I'm not a big fan of it. He is giving the players a chance to govern themselves, though.
Yeah.
Because he's giving them the option for no pitch clock in 2018, and if they can get the average game under 2 hours and 55 minutes, then no clock in 19, and then he wants it reduced to 2 hours and 50 minutes in 19 for no clock in 20. So he's kind of giving them a chance to govern themselves and say, we need to do this, because he knows the players don't want a clock.
Yeah.
He knows that a lot of players have spoken out against the clock.
That's true.
So
that is true.
I will say one thing. I understand where he's kind of coming from. You have this game, and they're struggling. Like you were talking about, I wouldn't say struggling, but they're definitely trying to get to the level of the NFL in terms of viewership, and watching it on TV. And I think that's his way of trying to modernize baseball, because we've talked about baseball being, America's pastime, and people in this world now, people are definitely all right, let's
absolutely.
pick
It's
it up.
right here, right now.
I got things to do. I want to watch the game and then go continue what I was doing.
For me, I just don't see how anyone that isn't interested in baseball now, because if you know about baseball, you've already decided if you like it, if you don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't understand how he thinks people will be swayed to come to baseball by eliminating the intentional walk, by making it a signal instead of throwing 4 pitches.
Yeah, I do think. Well, that's a different category. But I do like this topic too, because now you're talking about even in the intentional walk. Every once in a while, I got to take a swing and get a good single off of it. You know, so will that be an issue? Because a lot of times it's just send him. But I don't know. I'm actually I'm on the edge about that one, and the reason I am is because that's not so much. It is pace of play to an extent, but it's not the extent of a clock or anything. It is just eliminating those 4 pitches. But those 4 pitches, especially let's say like the 9th inning of a game, for example. You get the number 3 hitter. He comes up, and this guy's had an outstanding game. He's 3 for 3 so far, and you want to walk him. Well, if you decide to throw the 4 pitches, maybe on that 3rd pitch he reaches the bat out. And he gets that single. He brings the guy around.
Gary Sanchez did that in 2016.
Yeah, and there's a lot of instances where that has happened in Major League Baseball. You completely eliminate that as the defensive squad when you get to just point the finger. So I don't know. That's confusing to me. I can't say that I have a side necessarily, but that's a little different than the pitch clock. I do have a different opinion there.
Yeah, there was a couple games recently. I mean, recently being the last year that they didn't have, that they had the 4-pitch intentional walk, where games were won in the 9th or in the last inning when they were trying to do an intentional walk and just chucked it.
Yeah.
So that eliminates that possibility. The point is that it does throw off the pitcher.
For sure.
He needs to have that in his ability to throw 4 straight pitches outside.
And then come back and have to throw one down Main Street. I totally agree. I absolutely agree. Considering we are getting close to time though, and switching to player strikes, and obviously the pace of play thing has been our topic for roughly 10 minutes now. So let's go back. Let's go back to the possible strike of players. I think we solidified that. It's not much of a topic anymore, because I do think that it was a possibility there for a little bit. I think it was more because baseball fans were getting antsy to an extent. Obviously baseball is a very long season, so when you don't have it, you kind of wish it were there. And for the true baseball fans, it's a little bit of a high, a little bit of an addiction, and you lose it, and all of a sudden people aren't signing, so you don't have news in baseball, so then writers don't have a choice but to come up with one, so they bring up collusion, and collusion was in the news for weeks and weeks and weeks, and now it's kind of fallen off because the baseball season's getting closer, and baseball fans are finally content with what they're seeing. So I don't think we'll see a strike, but you guys have any different?
I would be just completely devastated if there was a strike, and I think it would be terrible for baseball if there was a strike. Just hypothetically, because people have thrown it out. Like baseball financially is at an all-time high, and viewership is at a high that it hasn't been in years.
Yeah.
So because the Cubs winning the World Series, and then an incredibly entertaining World Series between the Dodgers and the Astros. Yeah. To have all that momentum and then just to make it come crashing down with a strike, it would take decades for the MLB to recover from that. I'm not really sure how the issue of what we would see happen. I don't really know the conflict and all that stuff, because there's a lot of things that happen throughout different sports when strikes happen. But I do agree that it wouldn't be good for the sport, especially for the fans, because the fans want to see baseball, and when baseball's not there, what do you do?
Exactly.
I can't remember who it was, but there's from some golden age baseball player. He was asked what he does during winter, and he said, "Easy, stare out the window and wait for baseball."
This is our friend. Did they put it on the graphic earlier? Baseball Addict is actually his name. It's not Joshua, but that is definitely a thing, and I don't know. I don't think that we will see one. That's not an issue.
I feel like if we were going to see a strike, it would have happened. Like we would have had more. It would have been in a bigger news standing, definitely, like before today. I think it would have come a lot sooner. And I think, we were talking about, people want to watch baseball. And a lot of people, like, you might not have the biggest fans, right, who just love baseball, but I think a lot of people love the ability to come home from work or, come home from school and be able to flip on the television and there's a baseball game on.
Absolutely.
And you might not be a huge baseball fan, but you have that option to watch a game. Yeah. And I think that's something that was very important.
For sure. It'll be back. It'll be back.
Yeah, it will. All right, when we come back, we will introduce our segment Green Light, and this week we're discussing the Cleveland Indians abandoning their logo, Chief Wahoo. Welcome back to the lineup, and this is our segment Green Light. If you aren't that familiar with baseball, Green Light is when it's a count favorable for the batter, and the base coach gives the batter the green light to swing at anything he wants. So essentially this segment is we're going to talk about basically any random tidbit in baseball. And one of the things we wanted to talk about, we actually decided on before this, is the Indians are abandoning Chief Wahoo, which, yikes with that name. But you're actually in favor of the logo, correct? Like, you like the logo.
Okay, I understand. This is where I got to be careful, all right? Yeah. But I will say, one thing is that logo's been there for a while. Mm-hmm. And I think, as a Braves fan, we also have a logo, the Brave, which is an Indian. And I think I understand. I think Wahoo is a more extreme
it's kind of severe.
The Atlanta Brave. Mm-hmm. So I completely understand where the people are coming from in deciding that this is not an okay logo. Yep. I completely understand that. Another part of me is a traditionalist where, it's just that's been the logo, and that's, growing up that was the logo of the Cleveland, the Indians. And so it's like there's I don't want to, it's just a tug and pull situation where you understand both sides, you just don't really know what's the best thing for it.
Well, you sound a lot like the fan base. There's no doubt about that. And one of the things that I would definitely put forward is the way you can look at it is obviously the symbol itself is somewhat offensive. I do agree that it's not necessarily the best way they could have gone about it. Like you said, there's still tradition in it, and so a lot of the fans are going to miss it. It's not like they can't buy it anymore, just not from MLB.com, okay? My question is, when does it stop? When does the changing of all these mascots stop in terms of, now we're talking about the Fighting Irish is offensive. Now we're talking about the Chicago Blackhawks. They are offensive. Now we're talking about, like you said, the Atlanta Braves. When does it stop? When is anything not offensive? Somebody turns on the news, they're upset. We're on a college campus, you got to have a safe room. Sorry, deal with it. I'm not saying that everything has to be that way, and I do think that this logo probably should be eliminated due to the fact that it's not necessarily in the most positive connotation.
If y'all haven't seen it, it's a Native American, and his head is stark red as this, basically. Yeah. And he has a big smiling face, and he has a feather on his head, and his head on his hat. So it is kind of rough.
It is, and like I said, it's just not a positive look at the logo. It's you talk about all the other ones like the Chicago Blackhawk. That is a legitimate face of an Indian. It's not a red face. It's not a cartoon. Okay, so that's I think that's the biggest issue with this one. That being said, obviously they're getting rid of it. A lot of fans don't like it. Other fans do.
Yeah, and Jim Thome, all-time Cleveland Indian great. He hit over 600 home runs. He wants to go into Cooperstown wearing just the block C. He doesn't want the Indian on his hat, which was the hat he wore for most of his career. So it's
which is understandable to an extent, especially when you have people protesting it regularly outside the stadium. So. It does make sense. I read up on quite a few articles, and the bigger games especially. Yep.
Well, I mean, it's because you have the Blackhawks and you have the Redskins, which I feel like those are somewhat respectful with that. But the Indians, it's just it's overboard. It's a caricature and it's offensive.
Yeah.
That's it for the lineup today. I am Joshua Adams. For Christenson and Jeffrey Matthews, this has been the lineup. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next week.